On a foggy night, a man and his elderly boss stood on a deserted bridge. There was tension in the air, and the man's voice trembled as he spoke. Moments later, the silence was pierced by a scream, followed by a deafening splash. He had no idea that in the shadows, a pair of loyal eyes had seen everything. What secrets had this faithful witness seen, and how could his silent presence unravel it all? The bridge creaked under the weight of time and neglect. The moon, hidden behind thick, ominous clouds, barely gave enough light to illuminate the place. It was here, amidst the eerie stillness of the night, that Ivan nervously paced. He looked over his shoulder, his expression a mix of guilt and hesitation. Behind him, his elderly boss, Pyotr Nikolaevich, approached, his cane tapping rhythmically. Nikolaevich was a man of quiet dignity. His silver hair was neatly combed, and the wind tugged gently at his frail body that bore the burden of decades of hard work and loyalty. But tonight, he seemed unaware of the danger just a few feet away from him. "Ivan," Nikolaevich said softly, his voice barely audible over the faint noise of the river below. "You were like a son to me. I don't know what's troubling you, but we can face it together." But Ivan didn't respond. His grip tightened on the briefcase. Inside was the temptation, the confidential files and financial documents of Nikolaevich's profitable business. Too tempting for Ivan to resist. Nikolaevich had trusted him with everything, never suspecting the growing resentment and greed brewing in the young man's heart. When Nikolaevich leaned against the railing to catch his breath, Ivan's heart pounded. He thought of his mounting debts, his failed investments, the life he always dreamed of but never achieved. He needed this, he told himself. He deserved it. Then came the moment of betrayal. A swift push, a gasp, a scream. Nikolaevich's cane clattered to the ground as his body plunged into the icy depths below. Ivan froze. His breath caught as the splash echoed through the night. His pulse roared in his ears, but the relief was short-lived. From the shadows of the nearby bushes, a soft rustle broke the silence. Unseen and unnoticed until now, Nikolaevich's loyal Caucasian shepherd, Amur, had watched the entire scene. His amber eyes glowed with an almost human intensity as he stepped forward. His body was tense, trembling. Ivan noticed the dog too late. His breath hitched when Amur emerged. For a moment, Ivan thought about chasing the dog away. But there was something unsettling in Amur's presence. A silent, watchful stillness that sent chills down Ivan's spine. Amur didn't bark, didn't growl. He simply stood and stared. And then, just like that, he turned and walked away, the sound of his paw steps fading into the distance. Ivan's mind was a storm of panic and confusion. He kept replaying the push, the scream, the splash, and now the unexpected witness. It's just a dog, he thought. But why did that meeting feel so unnerving? Quickly regaining his composure, he couldn't stay here. With trembling hands, he picked up Nikolaevich's cane and threw it over the edge of the bridge, watching as it disappeared into the river. He took a deep breath, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and started the engine. His plan wasn't perfect, but he had to stick to it. Back at Nikolaevich's sprawling estate, the old man's absence would soon be noticed. Ivan had to act the part, the concerned colleague, shocked by his mentor's sudden disappearance. He parked in the driveway. The imposing mansion was eerily quiet. Usually, Nikolaevich's voice echoed through the halls, calling Amur or giving instructions to the staff. But today the house felt like it was mourning. He rehearsed his words. "I went looking for Pyotr Nikolaevich," he whispered to himself. "He said he wanted some fresh air, and I couldn't find him." But as he stepped into the study, a low growl stopped him. By the fireplace sat Amur. The sight sent a shiver down Ivan's spine. "Amor," Ivan said cautiously, his voice trembling. He crouched slightly, trying to appear non-threatening. "Good boy, it's okay." But Amor didn't move. He didn't bark or bare his teeth. He just sat there, tense, his eyes never leaving Ivan, as if silently accusing him of his crime. A wave of unease swept over Ivan. Animals weren't supposed to act this way. Amor shouldn't know what happened on that bridge. Or should he? Trying to shake off the discomfort, Ivan left the room and closed the door. The next morning, the staff was already whispering about Nikolaevic's disappearance. Ivan played his role. His voice trembled as he explained that the old man went for a walk and never returned. The police were called, and a search party was organized. But as the investigation began, Amor's behavior grew stranger. He followed Ivan everywhere. His amber eyes watched him closely. At night, Ivan heard the soft sound of paws outside his bedroom door, echoing through the empty halls. He couldn't sleep, haunted by guilt and by the dog's eerie presence. One evening, on the third day of searching, Detective Svetlana Petrovna arrived at the estate. She was perceptive and striking. "Beautiful dog," she noted, crouching to scratch Amor behind the ears. Amor leaned into her touch, softening for the first time in days. "He was Pyotr Nikolaevic's pride," said Ivan, forcing a smile. Svetlana studied the dog for a moment, her brows furrowing. "Loyalty like this," she said half-jokingly, "often means they know more than we do." But her words struck a nerve. Days turned into weeks. The search for Nikolaevic yielded no results. Suspicion began to focus on those closest to him, especially Ivan. Meanwhile, Amor grew more restless. He barked at doors, growled whenever Ivan neared Nikolaevic's belongings. One night, as Ivan sat alone in the study, he heard a strange noise, a soft scratching at the window. His heart raced as he turned, and saw Amor staring at him from the other side of the glass. His eyes glowed in the moonlight, as if the dog was challenging him to confess everything he refused to admit. Ivan knew he had to get rid of Amor. He couldn't focus with the dog constantly trailing him, reminding him of what he had done. Late that night, he put Amor in his car and drove deep into the forest. The dog sat silently in the passenger seat, its gaze fixed on Ivan. When they reached a remote clearing, Ivan opened the door and gestured for Amor to get out. "Go," he said, his voice trembling. "You'll be fine here." Amor hesitated. His eyes searched Ivan's face. Then he let out a soft whimper and disappeared into the trees. Ivan drove away, relieved to be free from the dog's accusing presence. But deep down, he knew this wouldn't be the last time he saw Amor. The forest was eerily quiet. As Ivan drove away, his car sliced through the darkness, and for the first time in days, he felt a flicker of relief. Amor was gone, out of his life and out of his mind. Without the dog, he thought he could finally begin to regain control. But deep inside, a gnawing unease remained, like a dying ember refusing to go out. The next morning, Ivan was startled awake by a loud knock at his front door. His heart leapt in his chest. Panic gripped him as his mind raced through the worst scenarios. What if someone found Pyotr Nikolaevic, or worse, what if someone had seen him on the bridge? Shaking off the thought, he composed himself and opened the door, to see Detective Svetlana Petrovna standing on the porch. "Good morning, Ivan," she said, her sharp eyes scanning his face. "I hope I'm not disturbing you. I have some updates on the Pyotr Nikolaevic case." Ivan forced a polite smile, though his palms were clammy. "Not at all, Detective. Please, come in." As Svetlana Petrovna entered the house, she seemed to take in every detail. Her gaze lingered on faint scratches on the parquet floor near the study. "We've expanded our search radius," she explained as she sat down in the living room. "But I wanted to speak to you about something unusual. It's about Amor." Ivan's heart sank. "Amor?" he asked, feigning confusion. Svetlana Petrovna nodded, pulling a folder from her bag. "Earlier this morning, the dog, or what we believe is him, showed up at a local police station. The officers said he sat by the door barking until someone let him in." Ivan's blood ran cold. He struggled to keep his expression neutral as she continued. "Here's the strange part," she said, opening the folder. Inside was a photo of Amor sitting at the station, with something clutched in his mouth. It was a cane, a familiar cane, Pyotr Nikolievich's cane. Ivan's heart pounded as she laid the photo on the coffee table. "We're having it analyzed for fingerprints," she said. Her tone was casual, but her eyes were razor-sharp. "It might help us establish a timeline." When the detective finally left, Ivan collapsed onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. But there would be no peace. Later that evening, while pacing the house, trying to figure out his next move, a sound outside caught his attention. A low, steady growl. He froze, tensed, and slowly approached the window. Looking out into the darkness, he saw Amor. The dog stood under the porch light, his fur glistening in the damp air, his amber eyes burning with intensity. Amor didn't move. He just stared, as if waiting. Ivan stepped back from the window, his breath quick and shallow. This couldn't be real. He had left Amor miles away in the forest. How had he returned so quickly? And why did it feel like the dog was trying to tell him something? The next day, Svetlana Petrovna stood holding a watch, covered in dirt, the engraved initials PN faintly visible. She examined it under the flashlight, then looked at Ivan. His face was pale, his hands shaking at his sides. "I appreciate your cooperation, Ivan," she said. "We'll be in touch." As she and the animal control officer prepared to leave, Amor hesitated. He looked back at Ivan one last time. His amber eyes were filled with something like both accusation and pity. Then, without a sound, he climbed into the truck, leaving Ivan alone with his growing dread. But Ivan couldn't escape. The walls of his vast estate seemed to close in, suffocating him with silence. Everywhere he turned, there were reminders of Pyotr Nikolievich, his favorite chair by the fireplace, the portrait in the study, even the faint scent of his cologne lingering in the air. And it wasn't just the house haunting him. It was Amor. In the garden, under the pale moonlight, Ivan dug furiously near the place where the watch had been found. His hands trembled as he sifted through the dirt, searching for anything that could incriminate him. His heart stopped when he unearthed an object, then froze in horror. It was a cufflink, with the same engraved initials PN. Panic surged through him. How many things had he dropped that night? Had he been so careless in his rush to cover up the crime? He stuffed the cufflink into his pocket, his mind scrambling for justifications. But then a sound behind him, a soft rustle of leaves followed by a deep, guttural growl. Slowly he turned. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, and there stood Amor. Ivan's breath caught. How was this possible? The dog had been taken to an animal shelter, and yet here he was, his fur shimmering in the moonlight, his eyes glowing with fierce intensity. "Amor!" Ivan whispered, his voice shaking. The dog stepped forward, his movements deliberate and steady. He no longer barked or growled. He simply stared, his gaze unwavering, as if daring Ivan to confess. Ivan stepped back, his heart racing. "Stop!" he shouted, waving the flashlight like a weapon. "You're just a dog. You don't understand anything." But deep down, Ivan wasn't so sure. Amor's presence felt almost supernatural, as if he were the spirit of Pyotr Nikolaevich made manifest. The dog's eyes seemed to strip away his lies and expose the truth. Ivan turned and fled into the house, slamming the door behind him. He collapsed to the floor, chest heaving. A sharp knock jolted him again. He hesitated, mind spinning in fear and paranoia. Eventually, he opened the door. Svetlana Petrovna held up her phone. "These were taken tonight at the police station," she said. Amor had appeared again, this time with a torn piece of fabric in his mouth, what looked like part of a jacket. Possibly Ivan's. That night, Ivan paced his room. The weight of his guilt bore down on him like a physical force. The torn fabric, the cufflink, the watch. It was as if every mistake he made that night had returned to haunt him. He poured himself another drink, trying to calm his nerves, but the alcohol did little to drown out the memories. The bridge, the splash of water, the panicked screams. Pyotr Nikolaevich. When he was sitting in a dimly lit room, Ivan's phone vibrated on the table. It was an unknown number. Hesitating, he answered. "Ivan Kaliv?" asked a rough voice. "Yes." "Who is this?" The voice on the other end chuckled darkly. "Let's just say I know things about you that you'd prefer to bury." Ivan's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about? Do you think no one saw what happened that night?" The voice continued. "Let's just say Amor isn't the only one watching you." Before Ivan could respond, the line went dead. He stared at his phone. His hands were trembling. How could this person know what he had done? The next day brought another unwelcome surprise. When Ivan stepped outside to check the mail, he found a small package on his porch. It had no markings, no return address. Carefully, he brought it inside and opened it. Inside was a small dirty item. A gold ring, engraved with the initials of Pyotr Nikolaevich on the inner side. Beneath it was a note, scrawled in a rough handwriting. "You can't run from the truth." Ivan's breath caught in his throat as he stared at the ring. It was yet another piece of evidence tying him to Pyotr Nikolaevich's disappearance. And now it was inside his house. The note implied someone else knew, and was toying with him. Paranoia began to consume him. He double-checked the locks on all doors and windows. His eyes darted to every shadow, every movement outside. Amor's absence should have been a relief, but instead, it made him feel even more vulnerable. Meanwhile, Svetlana Petrovna continued her investigation, gathering fragments of evidence that increasingly pointed to Ivan. She visited the police station, bringing what Amor had found. Her suspicions grew with each discovery. "It's as if he's leading us to the answers," she told a police officer. "Or someone else is," the officer replied, tapping the latest forensic report. The fabric Amor brought matches the jacket of Ivan Kaliv. "We've confirmed it." Svetlana Petrovna nodded. The puzzle pieces were starting to fall into place. "It's not enough to charge him yet, but we're getting closer." "Then maybe we should see what Amor does next," suggested the officer. Unknown to Svetlana Petrovna, someone else was pulling the strings. In the shadows, a figure watched Ivan's every move. Their motives were wrapped in mystery. They had seen what happened on the bridge that night. But instead of going to the authorities, they sought a more personal kind of justice. This unknown witness had placed the ring on Ivan's porch. They were the one who called him in the middle of the night. And now they were preparing their next move. That evening, Ivan was startled by the sound of breaking glass. He rushed to the kitchen and found a stone lying among the scattered shards. Attached to it was another note. "You're running out of time." Panic gripped him. Who was doing this? Was it Svetlana, the mysterious caller? Or somehow, Amor? "And I'll tell everyone what I know." Darkness had fallen by the time Ivan reached the bridge. His car crept along the narrow, winding road. The place seemed even more ominous than it did that night when he had pushed Peter Nikolaevich over the edge. Memories surged back, terrifying and vivid. But it wasn't guilt dragging him back now. It was the chilling message from the anonymous tormentor. He parked by the edge of the bridge and stepped out. His heart pounded so loudly, it drowned out the rustling of leaves in the wind. The night was eerily quiet, save for a distant croaking. Standing at the center of the bridge, Ivan strained to see the person's features, but they were cloaked in darkness. "Who are you?" Ivan demanded. His voice trembled despite his efforts to sound composed. The figure stepped closer. For a brief moment, their silhouette was lit by the faint moonlight. They wore a hooded jacket. Their face remained hidden. In their hand, they held something small and metallic, a flashlight. They turned it on and pointed it at Ivan's face. "So you don't recognize me?" the figure said. Their voice was distorted. But before Ivan could respond, the woman continued. "I didn't come here to kill you, Ivan. I'm not like you, but I will make sure you pay for what you did. If you don't confess by tomorrow morning, I'll release the video. And believe me, the police won't be the only ones knocking at your door." Then the woman disappeared into the night. Ivan stood frozen on the bridge. The weight of her words pressed on him like a physical force. He staggered back to his car, his mind racing. He couldn't allow that video to go public. But what choice did he have? His options were dwindling. The walls were closing in. When he got home, the first thing he did was plug the USB drive into his laptop. His hands trembled as he opened the file. The screen flickered to life, showing grainy footage of that night. The video was shaky but clear enough to capture everything. The argument with Peter Nikolaevich, the push, the old man's desperate attempt to hold on, and finally his fall into the icy water below. Undeniable proof. Ivan slammed the laptop shut. His breath came in short gasps. His mind churned through possibilities, but none offered a way out. Turning himself in felt like surrender. But if he didn't, the video would destroy what little remained of his life. Meanwhile, Svetlana Petrovna was assembling her own puzzle. The evidence against Ivan was mounting. She reviewed the items Amor had brought to the station. The watch, the torn fabric, the cufflink. Each one painted a clearer picture of what had happened. But it still wasn't enough to secure a conviction. Her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. "The bridge. Midnight. Don't be late." The next morning, Ivan was jolted awake by the endless vibration of his phone. He groped for it and saw a flood of notifications. His heart sank as he opened one of the messages. The video had leaked. It was everywhere, on social media, on the news, even in his email inbox. Panic overwhelmed him as he grasped the scale of what had happened. There was nowhere left to hide. The world knew what he had done, and it was only a matter of time before the police came knocking. The morning sun cast its pale light over Ivan's estate, but its usual calm was shattered by the chaos within. Ivan sat hunched on the couch, face buried in his hands. The video was everywhere. Every major news outlet had picked up the story. His name was being broadcast, accused of murder. His phone kept vibrating from calls and messages, but he ignored them all. He couldn't face the world. Not yet. A loud knock on the door made him jump. He froze, breath catching in his throat. It was only a matter of time. The police had come for him. Lily shrugged, her eyes glistening. "I want to make things right for Pyotr Nikolaevich's family. And for Amor. He deserves it." Meanwhile, at the station, an officer was reviewing the evidence one last time before submitting it to the prosecutor. The case against Ivan was airtight, thanks to the combined efforts of Svetlana, Amor, and Amelia. But as he prepared the final report, a nagging feeling remained. There was still something left to uncover. "Svetlana Petrovna," he said as she entered his office. "Got a moment?" She nodded and sat down. "We have Ivan, and the evidence is strong," he said. "But there's one thing, Pyotr Nikolaevic's will. Did you know he recently updated it?" Svetlana frowned. "No. Why?" The officer handed her the document. It turns out Pyotr Nikolaevic left nearly everything to Amur, the estate, the savings, even the company shares. All of it placed in a trust managed by an animal welfare organization. Ivan found out about it just a week before Pyotr Nikolaevic died. The revelation struck Svetlana like a bolt of lightning. Ivan's motive was now crystal clear. The murder wasn't just about anger or power, it was about money. Leaving everything to Amur was the final insult Ivan couldn't tolerate. That evening, Svetlana visited the animal shelter again. Her thoughts were interrupted by a call from an officer. "Svetlana Petrovna, we have a situation in holding." When she arrived, chaos greeted her. Ivan was pacing in his cell, yelling at the top of his lungs. "You don't understand," he screamed. "I didn't do it for the money. He deserved it." Officers tried to calm him, but his confession echoed through the small room. Svetlana felt a pang of sympathy for the broken man in front of her. But sympathy didn't change facts. "Whatever your reasons were, Ivan, they don't justify what you did," Svetlana said firmly. "You made a choice, and now you'll live with the consequences." Back at the shelter, Amur was restless. Despite progress adapting to his new home, there was a sense of unease in the air. Staff attributed it to the aftermath of the case. But Svetlana Petrovna, she returned to visit him and saw something deeper. Sitting next to Amur's enclosure, Svetlana Petrovna quietly spoke to the dog. "You've already done so much," she said. "But I think you still want to tell us something more, don't you?" Amur's ears perked up, his intelligent eyes fixed on her. He gave a soft bark, almost in agreement. It was a reminder of the bond that had driven him to reveal the truth, a bond that Svetlana Petrovna was determined to honor. The next morning, Lily arrived at the station to present the final piece of evidence, the journal of Pyotr Nikolaevic, which she had found while cleaning out her father's old belongings. The journal contained detailed records of his plans for the company, his love for Amur, and his growing distrust of Ivan. One entry, dated just a few days before his death, read, "Ivan's ambitions are dangerous. I fear he is willing to go to great lengths to secure power, even at the cost of others. I must protect Amur and ensure a safe future for the company." The journal was damning evidence, solidifying Ivan's motive and painting a clear picture of the events leading up to the murder. For Svetlana Petrovna, it was the final piece of the puzzle. Later that day, as Svetlana Petrovna stood in the courtroom, watching the charges brought against Ivan, she felt a mix of emotions. Relief that justice was being served, sorrow for Pyotr Nikolaevic and the life that had been taken, and hope for Amur, whose loyalty had brought the truth to light. As Ivan was led away in handcuffs, Svetlana Petrovna caught sight of Amelia sitting in the gallery. Her hands were clasped tightly on her lap. Their eyes met, and Lily nodded, silently acknowledging everything. The courtroom was tense as the trial continued. Ivan's confession had leaked in video form, and now Pyotr Nikolaevic's journal had painted a picture of betrayal and deadly ambition. Despite everything, a sense of Pyotr Nikolaevic lingered in the air. Svetlana Petrovna felt as though the waiting was endless. Amur wasn't present, but his role in the case was enormous. The prosecutor used his loyalty and actions as a symbol of justice and truth, an embodiment of the bond between human and animal. As the prosecutor said, Amur wasn't just a witness to the crime, he made sure the truth came to light. That is a devotion no one can underestimate. When the jury returned to deliver the verdict, the courtroom fell silent. Ivan sat motionless, his expression unreadable, though his fingers twitched nervously. After a long pause, "We, the jury, find the defendant, Ivan Kaliv, guilty of second-degree murder." A gasp rippled through the courtroom, followed by whispers and murmurs. Ivan's face went pale, and his composure finally broke as he sank into his seat. For Svetlana Petrovna, it was a bittersweet moment. Justice had been served, but the cost was undeniable. After the verdict was delivered, Svetlana Petrovna stepped out of the courthouse. The fresh air was a welcome relief from the stifling atmosphere inside. She spotted Amelia standing at the steps, looking out to the horizon. "It's over," said Lily, her voice barely audible. "For now," replied Svetlana Petrovna. "But you and I both know this case will echo for a long time. There's still work to be done." Lily turned to her, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "What kind of work?" Petr Nikolaevic's journal hinted at more than just Ivan's betrayal, explained Svetlana Petrovna. "There's a whole network of corruption within the company, people who turned a blind eye or even enabled Ivan. If we want real justice, we can't stop here." Meanwhile, at the animal shelter, Amor was adjusting. His contribution was undeniable. He would often perk up at the sound of her voice, and when she visited, his tail wagged freely. On this special day, as the day wore on, Svetlana Petrovna and Lily discussed the next steps. Svetlana Petrovna's plan to investigate the corruption within Petr Nikolaevic's company was ambitious, but necessary. "If we want to honor Petr Nikolaevic's legacy," said Svetlana Petrovna, "we have to root out the rot. That means holding everyone accountable, not just Ivan." Lily hesitated, her fingers tracing the edge of a photo she had brought. A photo of Petr Nikolaevic and her father, proudly standing in front of the company's headquarters. "I'll help," she finally said. "My father believed in Petr Nikolaevic's vision. If there's a chance to protect it, I'll do whatever it takes." That evening, Svetlana Petrovna returned to her office to write her conclusions. The case against Ivan may have been closed, but her instincts told her there was still more to uncover. Petr Nikolaevic's journal contained cryptic references to meetings and deals that didn't quite add up, and Svetlana Petrovna was determined to follow every thread. Afterward, she opened her laptop and began browsing through the files. Her mind was racing, considering possibilities. But as she worked, a notification appeared on her screen, an email from an anonymous source. The subject line read, "There's something else you need to know." Svetlana Petrovna's heart pounded as she clicked on the message. Attached was a document detailing a series of transactions between Petr Nikolaevic's company and a shell corporation. The dates aligned with the timeline of Ivan's betrayal, but the amounts were staggering, millions of dollars transferred to accounts without any clear purpose. "It's not over," Svetlana Petrovna muttered. Her resolve hardened. She knew she was on the verge of something much bigger than she had initially suspected. Meanwhile, in his prison cell, staring at the blank walls, Ivan replayed the events that led to Petr Nikolaevic's death. The weight of his guilt pressed on him like a physical force. He thought about Amor, the loyal dog who had been the key to his downfall, and for the first time he felt a flicker of remorse. But remorse wouldn't change his fate. Ivan knew he had lost everything: his freedom, his reputation, and his chance at redemption. All that remained was the cold, unrelenting reality of the choices he had made. Back in Svetlana Petrovna's office, the air was thick with anticipation as she combed through the files from the anonymous source. The evidence pointed to a shadow network within Petr Nikolaevic's company that had operated in secrecy for years. Hidden bank accounts, offshore transactions, and encrypted messages painted a picture of corruption that went far beyond Ivan's actions. Meanwhile, at the animal shelter, Amor was restless, as if sensing that the story wasn't over. There was still something that needed to be made right. The next day, Svetlana Petrovna visited Amor at the shelter. He seemed to feel the change in the air and greeted her with excited barking and a wagging tail. At the once-tainted company of Petr Nikolaevich, Lily and a newly appointed management team began to enter, a sign of a new beginning. One cool autumn morning, Svetlana Petrovna received an unexpected letter. The envelope bore the logo of an animal rights organization, and inside was an invitation to speak at an upcoming conference. At first, Svetlana Petrovna hesitated. Public speaking had never been her strength. But then she looked at Amor, who stared at her with his usual mix of loyalty and trust. In the days that followed, life returned to its usual rhythm. Svetlana Petrovna resumed her work as a detective, but now with a renewed sense of purpose, driven by Petr Nikolaevich's vision. Amor, her ever-loyal companion, became an inseparable part of her life. Whether they were solving a case, strolling through the park, or enjoying a quiet evening at home, he was always by her side, a reminder of the journey they had shared. The headlines she left behind spoke of a legacy of hope and resilience. People across the country were inspired by the story of a faithful German shepherd who helped uncover the truth and bring justice to a grieving family. For Svetlana Petrovna, the journey had been more than solving a case. It had been a search for something she hadn't realized she was missing. Not just a partner, but a friend, a protector, and a constant source of joy. One evening, sitting on the porch watching the sunset with Amor at her feet, Svetlana Petrovna thought about everything they had been through. "We make a pretty good team, don't we?" she said softly. Amor barked in agreement, his tail wagging, as if to say, "The best." "Did you enjoy the story? Do you believe in the power of loyalty and the bond between humans and animals? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Svetlana Petrovna moved closer to him. This video could no longer be ignored. There was nowhere left to run from the truth. With a deep breath, he began to speak. "This wasn't supposed to happen," Ivan said, his voice trembling. "Pyotr Nikolaevich and we had a fight. He accused me of trying to take over the company, of undermining his authority. He said I was ungrateful, that I owed everything to him." His jaw tightened. Maybe he was right, but he never saw me as an equal. He treated me like some kind of servant, even after all these years working side by side. That night, I just wanted him to understand that I deserved respect. He paused. His eyes were glistening with unshed tears. I never meant to hurt him. I just wanted him to back off, to see that I wasn't afraid. But he lost his balance, and when he fell, panicked. I didn't know what to do. Svetlana Petrovna studied him carefully. "So you left him there? To drown?" Ivan's head dropped into his hands. "I thought maybe someone would find him in time." Outside, the silence was broken by the hum of approaching cars. Svetlana looked out the window and saw them. She turned back to Ivan, her expression unreadable. "It's over, Ivan," she said quietly. "They're here for you." Ivan didn't resist. When the officers entered, he stood silently as they read him his rights. She had cracked the case, but at a price she hadn't anticipated. As Ivan was led to the police car, a familiar figure appeared at the edge of the driveway. It was Amor. His golden fur gleamed in the sunlight, his eyes fixed on Ivan. The dog didn't bark or growl, he just stared. His presence was a silent testimony to loyalty and justice that ultimately destroyed Ivan's life. Svetlana Petrovna knelt beside Amor, running her hand over his fur. "Good boy," she murmured. "Better than most people." Back at the station, Ivan sat in the interrogation room, overwhelmed by regret and despair. The leaked video had sealed his fate, but it also left him wondering who had recorded it, and why had they waited so long to release it. The answer came later that day, when Svetlana Petrovna received a tip from an anonymous source. A young woman, previously unidentified, had been seen near the bridge on the night of Pyotr Nikolaevic's death. Digging deeper, Svetlana uncovered a connection between the woman and former employees. Her name was Amelia, daughter of one of Pyotr Nikolaevic's most loyal workers, laid off by Ivan during corporate downsizing. Lily had been on the bridge that night, and her phone had captured the incriminating footage. But instead of handing it over immediately, she decided to wait, using it as leverage to ensure justice was served when all the pieces fell into place. Svetlana Petrovna couldn't shake the feeling that the story wasn't over. Amelia's involvement added another layer to the case, hinting at a deeper web of motives and consequences. But for now, the immediate threat was neutralized. Ivan was in custody, and Amur's role. In the days following Ivan's arrest, Svetlana and her team faced a whirlwind of activity. Media frenzy over the leaked video intensified, and the public demanded answers. But for Svetlana, this story wasn't just about Ivan's crime. It was about the invisible threads that led to this moment and the lives forever intertwined in ways no one could have foreseen. At the animal shelter where Amur had been taken for a routine checkup, Svetlana Petrovna stood beside the veterinarian. "You've done an incredible thing," he said, petting Amur. "He's in excellent condition. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Svetlana smiled, but her thoughts were elsewhere. Watching Amur wag his tail, she couldn't help but wonder what had made him act the way he did. Was it simple loyalty to Pyotr Nikolaevich, or something deeper? Later that day, Svetlana received a message. The young woman had kept a low profile since the video leak, but now she wanted to meet. Svetlana agreed, and they arranged to meet at a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town. When Svetlana arrived, she saw Amelia sitting in the corner, clutching a steaming cup of coffee. She looked nervous, as if expecting someone to recognize her. "Lily?" Svetlana asked softly as she approached the table. The young woman nodded, her grip on the cup tightening. "Thank you for meeting with me," she said, her voice barely audible. "I'm glad you reached out," Svetlana replied, taking the seat across from her. "I've been trying to put all the pieces together, and I think you might have some answers." Lily hesitated, eyes cast downward. "I didn't want it to go this far," she said, "but I couldn't let him get away with it." "You did the right thing by coming forward," Svetlana reassured her. "But why did you wait? Why not go to the police immediately?" Lily took a shaky breath. "I was scared. My father always said Pyotr Nikolaevich was a good man. When he got fired, it broke him. And then I heard what happened on the bridge. I didn't know what to do at first. But when I saw how Amur acted, how determined he was, I knew I had to do something. It felt like I owed it to him." During their conversation, Lily shared more about her father's connection to Pyotr Nikolaevich and the betrayal he felt after being fired. She had grown up hearing stories of his kindness and generosity, and of Ivan's cold, calculated decisions. "I was following Ivan that night," Lily admitted, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean to, but when I saw him arguing with Pyotr Nikolaevich, I knew something was wrong. I started recording on my phone. When he fell, I froze. I didn't know what to do." Svetlana listened intently, her respect for the young woman growing with every word. Amelia's courage in recording the video and later coming forward had been key in cracking the case. "What will you do now?" Svetlana asked when they had finished. But when he opened the door, he saw Svetlana Petrovna, standing there with a look that was a mix of determination and something else he couldn't quite place. Was it pity? Reluctantly, Ivan opened the door. "Detective," he greeted her hoarsely. "I assume you've seen the video?" Svetlana Petrovna stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "Everyone has," she said bluntly. "It doesn't look good for you, Ivan." He slumped into his seat, his shoulders sagging under the weight of her words. "What do you want from me?" he asked, barely audible. "I want the truth," she replied.